is the Women in Tech panel that you've all been waiting for. So if you're far away and you haven't sat down yet, there's still places.
Was like, do not introduce these women. I'm going to do it.
I'm going to introduce these women because we have an incredibly important topic to discuss. And I know we have been talking about this for about 10 years now. And after 10 years of talking about it, women represent a global average of 20% of tech professionals. 20% after 10 years of talking about it. 47% in Africa. How is that possible? 15% in Europe and 20% in the United States. How can we change these numbers? What happens when women get power? And what will happen if they don't? Here to help us understand these vital questions are one of the most pioneering women in global education, Dr. Mmantsetsa Marope, who is the director of the International Bureau of Education for UNESCO. Sitting next to her in fabulous yellow is Mariéme Jamme, who is considered the diplomat of technology and who aims, as founder of I Am the Code, who aims to empower 1 million women and girls to code by 2030. 1 million. And she's devised her own computer to do it with. And finally, last but not least, is Divya Gokulnath, who is the co-founder, director, and educator for India's largest learning application called Byju's. She has got 25 million children learning with this app, and she plans on incorporating many millions more. So look out, world. These are the women who are going to finally take the conversation into action. Now, the first question I have, it's called a lightning round, so I only want a few words answers, is what will happen when women get power? What is the one thing that will change when we have power in tech and society? Doctor?
When women get power, we will have a dramatic shift in strategic gender roles and get closer to real gender equality. We will have shared growth, shared economic growth, and we will have higher earnings for women and the consequences of the quality of life on the family and children, and particularly on girl children.
Thank you. Mariéme?
Well, I think that women will be building prosperous societies. As you see today, the in the United States, women are now running parliament. We have more women making decisions, changing policies, learning how to code 7 languages in 2 years. So we have more women doing amazing work around the world. So let's go for it.
Since
Divya?
women form half the population and are an integral part of our social fabric, one thing which would change is many more women in leadership positions, which would inspire many, many more women that they can also do it. I think that's one thing which will change if we have equal access to power in tech and society.
All excellent points. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there's a lot of talk about women not being ambitious enough or man enough or being too perfectionist, about them being wrong somehow for success in technology. Now, I want to move that argument aside and ask my amazing panelists, what is the #1 biggest value that women bring to businesses that you have seen in your experience?
High productivity.
Productivity.
Yes. And women humanize the workplace, and they humanize technology.
What does that mean, humanize?
It means that women, when they have leadership in workspaces, they tend to use their power to address real human issues. And if a woman is running an institution, for instance, you would find that the policies to have daycare facilities in the institution, when women are making policies, you'd find serious arguments about holistic early childhood development and the length of maternity leave. you'll find a lot of arguments about building human resources base that will later on enable human capital accumulation, but from a very humanistic, equitable, and just perspective. That's what happens.
So they take care not only of the employees, but of the families of the employees. It's more holistic.
They take care of the holistic financial health of the employee, which is their earnings, emotional health, that I'm not worried about what is happening to my 2-month-old baby, and they take care of the relationships at the workplace. Forget all the bickering about women quarrel a lot and they fight. It isn't the case. And
because men never argue.
That's the point.
No,
and
it's peace and love. It's women
gossip.
who make wars. It's us who are constantly bickering. These poor, peaceful men. Yes.
And also, women come up with solutions that really address social problems, social humanistic problems. We have examples right here. You know,
because what is a company? It's a bunch of people working together. It is a social issue.
It's a bunch of people working together to bring about a global public good. And when women are in power, that accentuates the public good that they bring through their leadership roles. And that is extremely important if we are really serious about sustainable development, cohesive societies, if we are really serious about more just, inclusive, and equitable societies. Women aren't just chasing the bottom line, but they are looking at the holistic development of a human being.
Thank you.
Which is beyond the bottom line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mariéme, what do you think is the one biggest value that women bring to organizations, be they tech or otherwise?
I think women bring empathy, compassion, and kindness in the world I work in, because the tech industry is very, very tough for women.
Why is that?
I think there are biases against women because for example, if you are a full stack developer like myself, who learn how to code 7 languages in 2 years, men think you can't do it.
Wait.
So I review the codes, and the codes are wrong. The code they code is wrong, and so. But the women bring kind of like empathy and compassion, but also understanding that coding is very difficult to do, and so I think women also bring healthy societies. They bring prosperous communities, for example. And now they, for example, mobilize. Women mobilize within the companies. They bring all the women to come and work together. The collaboration component is there as well. I think it's time for us to think about what women brings within organization is actually collaboration, kindness. The world need that right now, and I think that's quite key right now.
This is something that I've noticed in the journalism work that I do. I have a team of women, professional journalists who report on Europe, only women. And they pay attention to social issues. They pay attention to other minorities. They pay attention to people who are having a hard time, not just to other women. So you're right that within a business organization, this is also key. What do you see, Divya?
I second her on empathy, but I would also say the ability to multitask. The important thing is values like this for an organization make problem identification, solution creation more multidimensional. And since technology can solve real-world problems at scale, it is important that there is an equal representation of women, not just in tech, but also in every sector out there, including tech. So if there is diversity in the workplace, I think they've covered all the points, but if you ask me, I'll say it drives innovation because there is diversity of thought. And when there is diversity of thought, there's more ideas, there are more solutions. Second, I think it improves the organizational culture, like they said, because today millennials want to bring their whole selves to work. They do not want to be discriminated for whom they authentically are, right? So if there is diversity in the workplace, you're automatically perceived as an organization which is more accepting and more empathetic, right? And the last thing I would say is diversity also ensures better customer connect, because tech is trying to solve real-world problems. There is diversity in the world. Now, if you do not have diversity in the organization, you may be alienating a core team, a core sector of society, just because you're not able to understand the problem completely. So I think for problem identification and solution creation to be multidimensional, there needs to be diversity.
And multitasking, which I don't like because the brain can't do that. But the ability to juggle many different responsibilities is something that we have had to deal with as women in culture. So by bringing that to work, it means you can be like Divya is. She's a teacher and a director and a mother and the co-founder. So that's many hats to wear that she's able to do. And that's my boss sitting there who juggles 3 or 4 different hats in my organization. So I confirm that multitasking is something we know how to do. Now we have another lightning round. I just want a few word answers. Do you think quotas are a good idea for helping to balance the gender scales in business?
Yes, but a qualified yes. I believe that quota systems are very important in forcing action rather than just have people talk about the need for balance. But quota systems are good, all things being equal. Therefore, when we put together a quota system, it should be the best suited woman to get into that place, and not just tokenism.
Okay, so not any woman, but the best woman.
The best woman.
Right. Thank you.
And the best men.
And sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mariéme?
I don't believe in quota systems because I think women are capable of, everybody can do things by meritocracy. You need to, you deserve to be there. And so you do things because you deserve to do it. I mean, if we were putting quota system in a tech sector, it's not going to work because we have so many women coders, amazing women developers across the world, just not in Africa, but all around the world, who are building amazing solutions. But I think one of the things we need to do is change the policies at the policy level, at the governmental level. We need to change the policies to actually.
The Americans love that.
But we need to embed the culture of changing women's life at the governmental level, but also, make sure that the policies are favorable to women and girls across the world. And I think the problem we have is at a governmental level, we all want to teach girls how to code, and we want to make sure women are part of they have a seat at the table. But at the same time, at the governmental level, the policies are very weak. So in my job, I see, when we government are implementing solutions, they actually don't do that.
That was supposed to be a short answer. Divya, quotas.
Yes,
good idea,
and
bad
no.
idea, yes
and no.
Okay, say a little bit more.
Yes, because it's a perfect thrust to create a balance and a skewed representation, especially tech, since you just have 20% representation globally. But beyond a point, I think what we need is a transformation in the mindset of people, right? If we consider work to be a part of life and not apart from it, right from women who want to create and make an impact, from companies who want to hire women, and people who hire for companies, if all of us believe that work is a part of life, right? It's beyond quota systems, and it's just a transformation of mindset, which is, I think, what will propel a better representation of women.
You wanted to add something?
I want to come back on quotas because I work in an environment where transformation takes time. And we need to balance the here and now solutions while we are transforming. And I work in an environment.
That takes some forceful pushing. Cultures don't like to change.
No, cultures are very, very unwieldy, but we do have to transform them. But if we wait for that transformation, we could lose a lot of very capable women and girls who could have been given the chance.
Yeah.
Let me give a quick example. In education,
very quick.
Invariably, it is young girls who are in rural areas who get poor quality education and who we will never see their talent, enable their talent, if we become hard and fast meritocratic and say we wait for the transformation. But
to happen all by itself.
It won't happen by itself. If we don't put a policy that allows us to take those girls who are talented but do not have the opportunity at the moment and give them the opportunity and enable them, we may lose them. And I can give you lots of evidence. Parliaments, girls, pro-poor policies where a child who is poor and couldn't get the grade because they were, in any case, in a poor school. We let them continue. And in 2, 3 years, by the time you get to the university, you can't tell where they were anymore. So we do need quotas to address the here and now and to demystify merit. Let's first agree that the opportunity to be meritorious is inequitable.
Ooh.
And quotas are
Great
necessary to leverage that.
If I could just add that when we're talking about quotas, we're not talking about 50-50 necessarily. Like the goal of a quota system doesn't have to be equality up to the wire. In fact, the research shows that if you can get a minority group up to 30% with a quota system, after that they are capable of self-sustaining that growth and being impactful on an organization. So actually, that means we've only got 10% to go. And if quotas could help us reach that 10%, maybe they're not such a bad idea, right? Okay, we've got 11 minutes and 25 seconds left. They don't give us a lot of time up here. And I want to know, you guys have seen in your relative sectors, various companies trying to wrestle with diversity. What is the number one thing that companies, in your experience, get wrong? And what would be a better approach?
Tokenism.
The one token woman in the board.
A friend of mine once told me, in affirmative action, nothing is better than a black, crippled, rural woman, black, with a Spanish last name.
Oh, God.
Because the company can tick all the boxes.
Yeah. And we're done.
Yeah. So if the diversity means putting a token black, a token woman, that's what the companies get wrong the most. I know you want one. The second one is putting those women...
It's not easy to control this one.
Putting those women there and not enabling them to play their role because you just wanted to tick a box. So this is what companies get wrong, and they get into a self-fulfilling prophecy, and suddenly diversity doesn't work. Diversity is extremely healthy because, as Divya was saying, we all see human challenges from multiple perspectives. And if you bring a diverse group, your solutions are bound to be integrated, they are bound to be better. So diversity is healthy, but it should be empowered and enabled, not tokenism.
I just want to add some of that. I mean, I like being controversial all the time. I don't like the word diversity. I like the word inclusion, because diversity is when you tolerate people, and inclusion is when you include people, when you actually have people at the table. And women need to sit at the table. They don't have to wait permission anymore. And what they do, companies, for example, I work with refugee women across the world, in Africa, all around the world. And these women are extremely amazing women. They're mathematicians, and they know physics and science. Wow. And they can decode, they know algebra, they know content. But if you bring those women into an HR organization, the first thing they have is biases. So I work with young women in Brazil. They are black girls in Brazil. And so if I try to bring them into a company in Brazil, the first thing they ask me, are you sure they know very difficult girls? Are you sure they're going to be okay for the company? And because at the structure level, at the HR level, they have no compassion and no empathy for these women. They have biases against these people. That's
so
what
one thing that companies get wrong is the approach of their HR department.
It's a bias, and all HR companies around the world, and I hope that companies that are here can take this on and actually look back again into the how they design the recruitment process of women and girls in their companies, and take the biases away from the beginning, but also allow these refugee girls and women, Syrian girls. I've seen them in Germany. They're extremely good mathematicians. They can code something that a young woman in Berlin cannot code, and the reason why they can't get the job is because they come from Syria and they are refugees. So their status, refugee is just a status. It's not, these people are coders for life, and status is just temporary.
Thank you for bringing that up. Very important point. What do you think, Divya? What do companies get wrong?
So I think one thing that today there's a lot of awareness. So companies are trying, at least to address the possibility of diversity. But one thing they may be getting wrong is the lack of representation of women in senior leadership.
5% globally, women
Yes.
in leadership in tech.
And a quarter of the businesses globally don't have any senior woman in senior roles. So, and since it's the senior leadership which gets projected out there, it sets up a notion to men and women across the globe that women just cannot be out there. So I think a lot can change if the founding team, the core team of the company, addresses the diversity problem in inception. If they can hire right when they start out, when there's diversity in the beginning, the diversity will trickle down. And I've seen that happen because in my company, we have 40% women on the board, 50% women in the top management, and 45% women
Wow.
across employees, 2,500 of us. So,
Wow. And it was that way from the very beginning.
yes, right from the beginning.
So what you're saying is if you start right, then
No.
you don't have to correct, which is much harder to do. It's like you build the building right as opposed to having an old one and trying to rework it from the inside.
And there are a lot of studies which support this, like this very interesting one called the Queen Bee myth, which goes on to say that female CEOs are more likely to surround themselves with other women in senior roles. In fact, they're 55% more likely to hire a woman in a senior role, or 50% more likely to hire a woman CFO.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of studies which suggest that if you have women on top, they become role models, they surround themselves with women, so diversity is trickled all through the
It's
organization.
have to be inclusion. You have to include everybody at the table. You have to let all the people speak and also have they sit at the table, especially if you are HR manager and recruiting people. You know, in your team, if you are a woman CEO, bring all the women in your team and listen to them. And then that's the thing. It's not diversity issue, but it's inclusion, allowing people to have a seat at the table.
Right. I'm glad Divya started us off with a positive example because that's where I'd like to end. We now have 5 minutes and 29 seconds left of this fantastic panel, and I want you to give me examples of what you have seen, a company that's got it right, or an organization. Where is the culture changing, women changing, and business changing to an equal degree? Because in the end, I think that's probably what needs to happen.
My company is my industry, and that's education. But I've seen ministries of education get it right by having the right policies that encourage diverse people.
Like who? Where has it gotten right?
Children of the poor, so you have pro-poor policies, quota systems, women, in this case, young girls. But where they get it right has been where the fundamentals are right. And the fundamental is get the opportunity to excel to everybody. If we do not have equal opportunity to excel, if we don't have the same enablement, if you don't get it at the base, then as Divya was saying, you are constantly trying to correct the wrong. It's more expensive, it's less efficient, and it doesn't work. And I have seen student learning outcomes from girls' learning outcomes in STEM and girls from the so-called poor areas actually have such gains that in 1 year was equal to 2 years of extra tuition by getting the right policies right and getting the enablers in terms of resources and all the materials and the coaching that those girls need.
But you have
That's my company.
But you have Ethiopia and Rwanda just not long ago. They have now women in parliament, 50%, and you have Ethiopia. You know, Ethiopia, remember in 1994.
Africa's leading the charge.
But in 1994, Ethiopia was people were dying. Do you remember Bob Geldof doing the Live Aid, telling the world, "Come and help Ethiopia." Now women are leading the country. Just
How
not
did
long
that
ago.
change happen?
I mean, it's like diversity. It's not diversity, but it's inclusion. You got also men. You also have men. We also need to think about men not allowing, but kind of like inviting women to take power. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia allowed these women, invited them to become the Supreme Court, and then they're now part of the parliament. But also we have women saying, I want to become a member of parliament in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, not long ago.
You wanted to add something, Dr. Mmantsetsa?
Just the language, when we talk about men allowing.
Yeah, that grates on me
or
too.
men inviting, I will refuse that invitation. and nobody has to allow me anything. It's about men derolling from the habit to ignore talent and capability when it's in women.
De-rolling.
Yes.
I like that. The
It
opposite
is-
of enrolling.
It is about, when you talk about perspective change,
Yeah.
it's when men enable themselves to wear a lens of fairness and equity and recognition of talent regardless. But we don't need men to allow us anything or to invite us to anything.
Thank you. Damn straight. Divya, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of awareness. I'd like to talk about India in
Please.
terms of what we have done. Like the Indian government recently has also passed a maternity act, which has increased the paid maternity leaves from 12 weeks to 26 weeks.
Hell yeah.
And now, why that's important is disturbing statistics, right? 50% of women leave their career just because of childcare. Just 27% join back, and 48% of them leave within 4 months of rejoining, right?
Why?
So, yeah, because of to take care of their
Because
children.
it's too challenging.
Yes.
Do both.
But I think the government is doing its bit. At least it looks like they want to take an initiative and help women come out and be out there. The percentage of women in boards has gone up from a dismal 5.5% to 11.2%.
Progress.
Well below the global average, but hey, there's a change. So I think the biggest game changer will be when women champion women.
Yep.
See, for every woman, a biggest mentor out there is another woman, be it a mother, mother-in-law, sister, boss, colleague. And if we can all stand up for each other, mentor each other in two ways, by supporting women, pushing them up, or to showing them how it's done so that they can also say, I can do it too. Right? That will be the biggest change. So coming back to what you said, the solution to a problem like this is not one thing, but if every stakeholder involved can get started, there can be a huge change. Like, do companies need to change? Do they need to be a bit different? Like I said, adopt a top-down approach. Make it a business priority to have women in senior leadership. Do women have to be a bit different? Yes. Stand up for yourself and say and believe that you can do it. We are all far better than what we think we are. Right? So I think that's one thing. And does culture need to change? Yes. And in India, the culture needs to change a lot, a real lot, because, there women are considered to take care and not take charge. But if we can all come out and stand up for each other, and it's a call out to all women actually. And
Men need
we
to
are
allow it.
50% of the culture.
Thank you
So-
very much, everybody. And quota systems. Woo! Thank you from my wonderful panelists.